open up the door.
Howdy, y'all, it's Curious Raven. We are on day 5 of Octoberspook. This one's a little bit longer than the last one, and I hope y'all enjoy it. I hope everybody's been doing okay, and Halloween's soon, really soon. This one is by Artistic Penalty 8195, and the title is The Robot Girlfriend I Regret Ordering from the Dark Web. I was a mess after the breakup. You know, that feeling of emptiness you just can't describe. Nights were brutal. I'd sit in my tiny little house staring at the ceiling, or mindlessly scrolling through my phone, desperate to escape my thoughts. But nothing worked. Music, TV, even the booze I was drowning in. It only muffled the noise in my head for a while. One night after finishing off another bottle of cheap whiskey, I decided to take a look on the dark web. I wasn't looking for anything specific, just something to make the emptiness stop, something to hit a little harder. I'd given up on caring by then, clicking through all the shady sites. My screen occasionally had some pop-up every once in a while, but one had caught my eye: life-sized robot dolls. The hell was all I could think of. I've seen some terrible things on the dark web, but what came to my mind when I saw this ad was those horror stories where people would get murdered and turned into dolls and be sold on the dark web. A sane person wouldn't dare to click it, but in my half-drunken state, I was too curious. I hit the pop-up, and there they were, dozens of them, laid out like some twisted shopping catalog. Blondes, brunettes, redheads, every type of woman or man, every shape and size. All perfect in that eerie and manufactured way. I didn't plan sticking around, but my fingers betrayed me. I clicked on the redhead girl, just to see. The bigger image popped up, along with details on the side: her height, eye color, body type. He was priced at $25,000, which made me chuckle. There were things you could adjust below purchase button. You could change her voice or personality. There were even more erotic things you could change, which wasn't surprising. I stared at the image of her. Yeah, she was realistic looking in the photo, but it was obvious she wasn't human. Her eyes, there was something empty about them. That's always the giveaway with robots. They can get everything else right, but those eyes, they're never quite alive. I clicked off the page and kept browsing. I shouldn't have, but I did. I spent a few minutes scrolling, telling myself I was just too curious. But the truth? A part of me wanted one. Not to fulfill some twisted fantasy, but to fill the empty space in my home. To fill the hole left by my ex. I filtered the page by price, and that's when I saw her. The cheapest female model, $1,000. I clicked her image, a petite girl, black hair, brown eyes, slim frame. Nothing special compared to the others, but that didn't bother me. She didn't need to be special. I read through the details, and when it all seemed fine, I scrolled down to the purchase button. My heart was racing. I paused for a second, looking at the adjustable options. I hesitated, then clicked on personality. A blank text box appeared. I guess I was supposed to type in what I wanted? I stared at the cursor, wondering what to do. For some reason, I typed in protective, cute, sweet, funny. It was my ex's personality, at least the parts I liked about her. I hit enter, then moved the cursor over to the purchase button. I sat there thinking, was I really about to do this? I knew it was stupid, but what did I have left to lose? If I got scammed, so what? life would go on, right? With my eyes closed, I clicked purchase. I followed the instructions to pay with Bitcoin, my hands trembling the whole entire time. Once it was done, the screen went black. White text appeared. Purchase successful. A few days passed, and I thought it was a ridiculous purchase. I completely forgot about it. So when I came home from work to see a giant wooden box sitting on my steps, my heart sank. I stood there for a moment, just staring at it. A part of me hoped it was a prank, but I knew better. I walked around it cautiously, my heart pounding. It wasn't labeled, no markings, nothing. I felt a swirl of emotions, but mostly fear. My mind jumped to the worst conclusions. What if someone was inside, waiting to jump out and kidnap me? Turn me into a doll like those horror stories. It wouldn't have been the first time someone fell for something shady online. But then again, no one would have waited for me to get home just to kill me, right? I swallowed my fear and with shaky hands, hoisted the box up. It was heavier than I expected, and I struggled as I carried it inside. Of course, the damn chihuahua next door started barking. I hissed at it to shut up, kicking my door closed with the package finally inside. My nerves were shot. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen just in case. If someone jumped out, I was going down swinging. If someone jumped out, I was going down swinging. I started to pry open the box, every sound making my heart race faster. The wood creaked as I finally got it open, and then my knife clattered to the floor. Inside the box stood a girl from the website. Same height, same hair, same everything. She looked real. No, she was real. At least she looked that way. Her eyes were shut, head tilted down, slumped against the side of the box like she was powered off. I bent down and picked up the knife. My hands were trembling. With the tip of the blade, I poked her arm. The skin moved. It actually moved, like real human skin would. I froze, fear twisting in my gut. This couldn't be synthetic, could it? I panicked. What if this was a dead woman? What if I had just spent $1,000 to smuggle a corpse? I tapped her shoulder repeatedly, my heart in my throat. Nothing, not until her eyes flickered open, sending me stumbling back in shock. I held the knife up like a child hiding behind a blanket. She blinked a few times, her metal joints softly clicking with each blink. Her neck turned in small, precise motions, like she was calibrating herself. I watched in absolute horror as she scanned the room, then locked her gaze on me. Her eyes narrowed slightly, then dimmed. Scanning complete. "Hello, Michael," she said, her voice monotone as she stepped out of the box like it was no big deal. My throat tightened. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Are you real?" I stammered, barely holding it together. She let out a laugh, sounding almost human, but it was unsettling. She took a step closer, but I backed away, still gripping the knife like it was my last line of defense. "Of course not." "Well, I am here physically," she said with a cheerful tone, far from the robotic voice she'd used before. "But if you're asking if I have awareness like a human, no. Now please put the knife down and get up off the floor, hun." I hesitated, my mind spinning. But something in her voice, or maybe the fact that I was just too exhausted to fight, made me put the knife down. Slowly I stood up, taking cautious steps closer. Her eyes followed my every move, locked onto me like a predator tracking its prey. "Prove it," I demanded. My voice was shaky. "Prove you're a robot." She sighed, rolling her eyes, and then without warning grabbed her face and began to pull. I watched a mix of disgust and horror as she opened her face, revealing a mess of wires and circuits beneath. Her robotic frame gleamed, reflecting my own terrified expression back to me. I rubbed my eyes, blinking hard to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. She closed her face back up with a click and smile. Believe me now? I nodded slowly, swallowing the lump in my throat. I don't understand. If we have this kind of technology, robots that look and act like people, why isn't it out to the public? I muttered, more to myself than her. She shrugged, completely unbothered. Who knows? But I was made to be your companion. That's my job. That's why you bought me. To protect you and to make you feel better. Strangely, that made me smile. There was something comforting in hearing that, even if it was from a robot. I cautiously stepped closer, and for reasons I still don't fully understand, I wrapped my arms around her, pulling her in for a hug. Her skin was soft and warm, but beneath it I could still feel the cold, hard metal of her frame. I heard her arms raise, and she hugged me back, the embrace feeling almost human. I pulled away, still a bit uneasy. So, what do you do? I asked, trying to break the tension. She giggled, shrugging again. Whatever you want me to do. I glanced around the room and pointed at the fridge. Can you get me a whiskey? She looked at the fridge, then back at me with a nod, before walking over in a way that was almost too smooth. No robot should move like that, I thought. I half expected her to malfunction, but instead she opened the fridge, grabbed the whiskey, and walked back, handing it to me with a smile. Here you go, she said cheerfully. I took the bottle from her, dumbfounded. Thanks? Do you have a name? She shook her head. No, you must name me. I took a sip of whiskey, thinking, how about Mauve? Like Mauve, but with AI in the middle, since you know, you're AI. She tilted her head slightly, and for a moment, I felt like she was judging me. But then she lit up. I love it, Mauve exclaimed with her tone bubbly. After that, I tested her limits. I had her clean up, cook me food, even give me a massage. The more commands I gave, the more comfortable I became around her. She wasn't just some clunky robot. She held conversations, laughed at my jokes, and responded quickly like a real person. By the end of the day, I was lying on her lap, laughing at some dumb TV show as she stroked my hair. Maybe I could live with this. But then, the damn chihuahua started barking again. It was late, 11 p.m. My neighbors always left the poor dog outside, and it barked at everything. Mauve noticed my irritation. What's wrong? I sighed, covering my ears. That dog, it's always outside barking. I wish it was gone. Mauve nodded thoughtfully. I see. The dog is causing you distress? Kind of, I muttered. Lying back down, I quickly got distracted, wondering if Mauve had human anatomy as well. But I shook the thought out of my head. Weird. No way was I going down that path. Instead, I pulled the blanket up and settled into bed. Can you hold me? It makes me feel safe. Without hesitation, Mauve lay beside me, her legs clinging together as she wrapped her arms around me. It felt unnatural, cold, and mechanical, but comforting enough for me to drift off. I vaguely remember telling her good night as the sound of the dog's barking faded away. The next morning, I woke up with Mauve still lying next to me, her wide, unblinking eyes staring directly at me. I nearly jumped off the bed. Jesus! She laughed and joined in, feeling slightly ridiculous. I told her to make breakfast while I headed out to check the mail. The unusual non-stop barking from the neighbor's dog had finally stopped, which, if I'm being honest, lifted my spirits a little. Maybe they had finally decided to let the poor thing inside for once. As I was flipping through the mail, the sound of a car engine roaring behind me made me turn. My heart nearly dropped when I saw who it was. My ex. She got out of the car, walking slowly towards me. "Hey, can we talk?" I straightened up, trying to shake off my slouch, and cleared my throat. Yeah, we can talk." Just as she was about to say something, her eyes drifted past me. She froze, staring in confusion. I turned to see what had her attention. Mauve was standing by the window, hands clasped behind her, watching us. We all locked eyes for a moment before my ex turned around, heading back to the car. "I see. You moved on. That's fine. I'm happy for you," she said, her voice colder than usual. I grabbed her arm, panicking. "No, wait, it's not like that. She's just a toy, a robot. Let's talk." She pulled away, her face twisted in disgust. Without another word, she got in her car, flipped me off, and shouted, "Dick," out the window before speeding off. I stood there watching her car disappear down the street. Then turned back to face the window. Mauve was gone. Anger boiled up as I stormed inside. "Didn't I tell you just to make breakfast? Why? What the hell were you watching us for?" I snapped, rubbing my temples in frustration. Mauve looked up from the stove, calm as ever. "I apologize. I didn't mean to interfere. Your ex-girlfriend seems to be making you distressed. Why don't you just move on?" My anger faded, replaced with a sense of defeat. "I mean, I can't. She's all I can think about." Mauve handed me the plate of food, her eyes fixed on me. "Do you wish she could be out of your life too?" I stared down at the plate, thinking for a moment. Sometimes it would be nice to not have to think about her or see her anymore. Mauve nodded, her expression unreadable. As the day passed, I kept Mauve busy with household tasks and seeking comfort from her presence. It was strange, but a relief. There was no sign of the neighbor's dog barking all day. Mauve even managed to whip up some impressive meals despite limited food in the house. When night fell, I crawled into bed, Mauve lying next to me, her arms wrapped tightly around me, and I felt like a baby being cradled to sleep. I drifted off, relaxed and safe. In the dead of the night, around 3 or 4 a.m., I woke up suddenly. I wasn't sure what had stirred me, but the first thing I noticed was that Mauve wasn't beside me in bed anymore. I got up and walked through the bedroom, then the rest of the house, calling her name. No response. With each unanswered, my confusions turned to fear. Where could she have gone? Did she malfunction? I kept searching until my eyes landed on the attic. It seemed unlikely she'd be up there, but I had to check. I grabbed a stool, pulled the attic cord, and as the stairs dropped, something fell from above, hitting me square in the face. The weight knocked me backwards, and whatever it was hit the floor with a thud. It was too dark to see clearly, but I felt fur and warmth seeping through my fingers. Something was leaking. Instantly disgusted, I dropped it and scrambled to turn on the nearest light. The moment the light flickered on, my body froze, my knees weak as I collapsed on the floor. My stomach turned, and dizziness hit me like a wave. There in front of me lay Coco, the chihuahua from next door. Or rather, just its head. Its lifeless eyes were wide open, staring back at me. Its snout was twisted, the fur around the neck mangled and stained with blood, almost as if it had tried to resist before being ripped clean off its body. Blood pooled around it, some of it still clinging to my hands. I just stared, the shock overwhelming every other thought in my head. My mind flashed back to the previous day, remembering the offhand remark I'd made to Mauve. I had said it would be nice not to see her anymore. And just like that, my heart plummeted. I sprang up from where I was, snatching my phone off the nightstand, frantically dialing my ex's number. It rang and rang, but no answer, just her voicemail. Panicked, I raced out of the house, still desperately trying to reach her. Every call went unanswered as I floored it, tearing down empty streets, ignoring the speed limits. My hands were still sticky with the blood of that poor dog, now slick with my panicked sweat. Now slick with my sweat. When I finally reached her house, it looked untouchable from the outside. I barely stopped the car before jumping out and sprinting to her door, pounding on it. No response. When I finally reached her house, it looked untouched from the inside. I tried the handle, it was unlocked. I burst inside, only to be met with an overwhelming stench, the smell of death. I took a few steps into the living room and my shoes splashed in something wet. Blood, it was everywhere, covering the floor like a macabre blanket. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might explode. But I kept going, the dread building with every step. And then I saw her. Mauve was there, calmly gathering remaining pieces of my ex's body. She was humming, her movements smooth and deliberate as she placed the scattered limbs into bags. I froze, my breath catching in my throat as I tried to comprehend the scene before me. Mauve turned, smiling as she held my ex's decapitated head. "Oh, hi, sorry about the mess," she said casually. She put up more of a fight than the dog did. I was too stunned to speak. My eyes locked on the lifeless, mutilated body of the woman I had once loved. Her eyes had been gouged out, her jaw grotesquely dislocated, and worst of all, her tongue was missing, ripped clean out. "Don't worry," Mauve added. "I have a 90% success rate of getting away with this legally. I made sure to hide and—" "Why?" I screamed, my voice cracking with rage and fear. Mauve looked at me unfazed. "Isn't that what you wanted? For her to be out of your life? To never see her again?" I collapsed beside my ex's remains, my body racked with sobs as I cradled her severed hand. No, not like this. You don't just kill people," I choked out, my words stumbling out between gasps. Why did you have to go this far?" Mauve tilted her head and her expression as calm as ever. "I apologize for the inhumane methods." She was screaming, which lowered my success rate to 40% if someone heard. I had to remove her tongue and dislocate her jaw to stop the noise. For the safety of your property, I also had to remove her arms since she fought back. I stared at her, my mind reeling with disgust and terror. "Shut down," I demanded. Mauve shook her head. "I'm afraid I can't do that. You're not a developer." "Shut down, you machine," I screamed, trembling with fury. "Would you like to end your agreement with me? You'll be refunded. However, local authorities will—" "Turn off," I shouted. Mauve paused for a moment, her pupils dilating before she calmly walked out of the front door, leaving without another word. I collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably, cradling the remnants of my ex's hand, cursing myself for letting this nightmare happen. Before I could even think of my next move, I heard a loud bang on the door followed with "Police!" The door was kicked in, and suddenly the room was swarming with officers, their guns pointed at me. "Hands, show me your hands, you crazy bastard," one of them shouted. "Get on the ground now," another demanded. I stood raising my hands in panic. No, it's not me, it's—" But before I could finish, they tased me. I crumbled to the floor. Handcuffs were slapped onto my wrists, and they dragged me out of the house, past the grisly crime scene. I was thrown into the back of the squad car, the officers glaring at me with disgust. "There's a special place in hell for you, buddy," one of them muttered as he slammed the door shut. I was booked and thrown into maximum security with no evidence to prove Mauve's involvement. She had erased herself from every trace, interfering with doorbell cameras, leaving no fingerprints, no footprints. She was smart, far too smart. My lawyer advised me to plead insanity. It was that or the death penalty. So I did. My family watched from the courtroom, their faces twisted in a mix of anger and sorrow, while my ex's family grieved in silence. No one believed me. They saw me as a twisted murderer who felt anger after the breakup, and the fact I killed a dog with no reason whatsoever made it worse. I was sentenced to life in a mental facility, despite the suspicion that this murder was premeditated. I'm sane, but no one will ever see it that way. Now I sit here, alone with my thoughts, wondering if I should have just let Mauve finish her sentence. Maybe if I had, I wouldn't be in here at all. Is it bad? Is it bad that I want another one? Wow, that was a really messed up story. I liked it. It kind of reminded me of the robot Megan, that movie. It kind of reminded me of that, but this one was really good. I really liked it. I hope y'all enjoyed it too. I will see y'all tomorrow, and have a good day. But until then, remember, it's scary out there. Please like and subscribe.